I think people were sleeping this past week because we are seeing some of the craziest deals in comics just take place in the last 7 days. Hit the subscribe button. We cover the hottest comic books in the world.
This is a really abnormal week. We're used to reporting on much larger numbers spent in a 7-day period, but we only saw $20,000 spent among 69 books above the 12-month average. So if you think about that, there has to be great deals going on because people are buying books below the 12-month average and getting great deals. Case in point, number 10 on this list, New Teen Titans number 2.
We got the first appearance of Deathstroke, 6 different sales totaling $1,400, and the 12-month average on a 9.8, in which we have no sales to report on above the 12-month average, mind you, in the last 7 days, is a lonely $599. This ranked on the trending 10 this past week. Russ, the LCS owner of the show, was appalled by that number. He thinks it was way too low. What do you think?
Before I get into what my thoughts are on the price, I have to preface that this is the first appearance of Deathstroke. This is as Bronze Age DC key really as you get. And with the rumors of a potential Deathstroke and Bane movie, live action movie, by the way, which is probably a stretch, but plausible, this book is not selling for as much as I would figure it should. But let's take a look at some of these numbers because we had a 9.4 sell for $200. That's up 14% from the average of $176. The 9.6 is up 4%. And the newsstand 9.6 just sold up 17% for $305, with 3 other copies and a 9.6 outselling the 12-month average. And we should look past just the entertainment aspect of this. This is an early Teen Titans appearance. DC Comics Presents 26, the first Teen Titans, was on the trending list. So this is more than just the first Deathstroke. It's a beloved team. Plus, you had George Perez and Mark Wolfman working on this book. Wolfman did 200 issues of Teen Titans, 44 issues of George Perez. This is a really, really loved series and title that is probably going to continue to gain steam and always be relevant in comics.
Utilize code Tom101 on the best comic app in existence and get access to the Hot 10 before we even hit the mic. Learn about funny books, keep up on all new comic books coming out, and support the show. Available for both Androids and iPhones. Looking at the list at number 9, one of my favorite comic books, we have Amazing Spider-Man 300, first full appearance of Venom. And I say it's one of my favorite comics. It's clearly one of the community's favorite comic books because when you look at the census count increase and the prices, it kind of doesn't make sense unless you know how beloved this comic is. And Sony's only been helping. Kind of surprising, though. You know, I'm not a huge fan of these movies, but when you look at the first 2 Venom movies, it brought in $1.4 billion to Sony on a budget of $337 million. Venom: The Last Dance comes out at the end of the month, and it's only been helping Spider-Man keys. 6 total sales, over $2,500. And notice, we have no 9.8s, no 9.6s, or no 9.4s to report on, but you know they're selling. They're just not selling above the recent 12-month average. Take a look at them because the 7.5 is up 1%, the 9.0 is up 12%, selling for $541, and the 9.2 is up 7%, selling for $575. Let's take a look at what the 9.4s are performing around. Despite there being 4 new 9.4s added to the census in the last 3 weeks, we're seeing it sell for right around the 12-month average. Despite the 9.6 having 10 new 9.6s added to the census, the book is down about $75, selling for $825 compared to the $910 12-month average. And despite there being 10 new 9.8s added to the census, the 12-month average is almost $3,000, and the last sale was $2,650.
8 is a really beloved book, but it's actually hated by its creator. Superman 233, Neil Adams' great list, but he called this a piece of crap. We have shirts, we have posters. Heck, even Canada made this a national stamp, but he did not like it. But who does? Us, the fans, because we had 4 sales above the 12-month average for $1,340. This is the only Superman book we ever see on this list. We had a 3.5 sell for $96. That's up 23%. A 4.5 up 33%. A 6.0 up 38% for a $225 sale. The 9.0 sold for $874. That's up 27%. 9 months. That's what it is that we are away from the James Gunn Superman movie. And to see this book on this list already 2-3 times just tells you how prevalent and relevant this book is to collectors. This is the Hulk 340 for DC. It's loved, and it gives you that bug bite of a golden age that you can't quite scratch in a Bronze Age key that's affordable.
similar to number 7 on the list, with The Joker number 1 from 1975, over $2,500 in sales, above the recent 12-month average. We have a 6.0 up 61%. The 9.0 had its year-high sale at $250. The 9.6 you can get for $450 right now. That's up 5%. And the 9.8 just sold for $1,660, up 17%. However, these sales took place throughout the week of the release of Joker 2, which had a $200 million budget and brought a lonely $40 million in. Now, one of the problems with streaming services, and I will admit, I fell into this week. I was planning on seeing the movie this last weekend. I saw the atrocious reviews and decided to just wait till I can watch it at home. And I think a lot of other people did the same because this thing bombed.
You know who didn't do the same, Tom? This guy. I went and watched this movie, and I don't understand what the big deal is. I thought this movie was almost as good as Catwoman, almost as good as Jonah Hex, probably not as good as Max Steel. But, you know, if you really want to see my full review, check me out on Golden Age Guru on Instagram. I did a whole thing on it. Ultimately, it's disappointing. It really is. Like, there isn't many movies or shows that when they do it, it ruins the prior. Like Game of Thrones, the final season finale, ruined for me recommending that show. And this part 2, gosh darn it, ruined Joker 1 for me. Because I did like Joker 1 enough to be like, okay, I get it. I appreciate it. So yes, I'm sorry for last week when I said that I had hope. All right. But now there is no hope. It's gone. It's been killed, stabbed in the heart, and stomped on.
You alluded to number 6 on the list, but before we do that, this is not a paid ad. It's just an awesome Kickstarter I want to make sure people know about because there's under 2 weeks left by the time you're watching this video for you to back it. Dynamite Comics has teamed up and they're releasing a Transformers like booster card pack. They got Marvel licensing. They teamed up with voice actors from the hit show. They have teamed up with like original artists who brought Transformers to life in the 80s. You can get signed stuff, original art, and so much more.
We discuss Transformers a lot, and rightfully so. They've been around for 40 years and beloved by many. And to have this 40th anniversary set come out by Dynamite is something special because they only need $20,000 for their Kickstarter, and they're at $210,000. Transformer fans are ferocious, and they see the value in this. Go check out the link in the description below, and you can check it out as well, because with the more money added, the more value they're going to put into this specific set.
Number 6 on the list is Incredible Hulk 340. You alluded to this earlier. And by the way, the only surviving Deadpool Wolverine key, kind of. It was barely in the movie, but that's all it took for people to see the prices and go, this book belongs in my PC. Now's the time. Because the prices, whoo, they're kind of low. We're seeing 5 different sales above the recent 12-month average, totaling over $2,300 in sales. The Newsy 9.2 is up 18%. The 9.6 you can get for $362, up 4%. Now, we discussed this book being purchased at sub $1,000. And we were both like, yo, if you can get this book around $1,000, pull the trigger. You got to pull the trigger at some point, right?
We discuss a lot of numbers, and many people do. On this show, we discuss on our trending list. But at some point, you're going to have to make a decision to jump in on a book that you really want. Okay, so always trying to chase the bottom can be tough. Just like they say that with the stock market. If you're always going to try to chase the bottom, you're going to probably miss it. So get into a book at where you feel comfortable. And this is a really, really cool book to own on many, many facets. And I'm going to get into that because we just saw this 9.8 sell for $1,300. That's up 27% for a year high. But the average is $1,025. So keep that into consideration when you're looking at this book because it's still a very common book to find.
Yeah, that happened really quick. Someone paying $300 to $400 more than what we recommended in a little less than a week. That's why sometimes you need to pull the trigger.
The thing not mentioned enough about this book is this is the first battle between the two since 180, 181, and 182, and really almost their first meeting if you take out like Contest of Champions or Secret Wars. And actually, he was in X-Men 124, but it was a robot he battled. So this is really interesting to have this book for more than just a Todd McFarlane cover and how glorious it looks, but also what's in between the pages.
Full disclosure, starting to get really worried about the movie spiking the next book on the list, so stay tuned. Support the show directly, the very video you're watching, and I will send you comics every single month. Go to ComicTom101.com. We drop the 101 It's ComicTom.com. It's very easy to find. And join the mystery mail call. A box of 4 to 5 comics going out to every member. And the guaranteed 1 per box exclusive is an NYX Peach Momoko X23 cover. Everyone gets it, and it's selling for more than the box costs. But that's not all. I have announced a second guaranteed exclusive this month. Every single member gets a limited to 1,200 trade dress of Omega Men #3. The first appearance of who, Jeff?
Arthur Khal Drogo Curry.
The first appearance of Lobo, praying that James Gunn and Jason Momoa make a damn announcement. That's why I made so many damn Lobo variants this year. But this one is done by none other than the powerful former God of War art director, now Netflix art director, Ralph Grassetti. Hit the website and let's talk about Bob.
Bob from Deadpool?
Bob from the Thunderbolts. Bob, the Sentry, #5 on the list, Sentry #1, 12 different sales, exceeding the recent 12-month average at a total of over $2,200 in money moved. 7 different 9.6s outsold the recent 12-month average. The high is a year-high sale going for $200. The San Diego Comic-Con variant 9.8 sold for $270. That was a year high, up 38%. And then we have the 9.8 standard direct copy going for $375, up 36%. We see a character in trailer that goes by the name of Bob, which is likely the persona of the Sentry, Marvel's version of Superman, a seemingly main character that the Thunderbolts have to deal with in this movie.
How do you deal with a character who has the power of a million exploding suns? I don't know. But #4, what the hell are you doing here?
#4 on the list is Moon Knight #1. Bill S. We have 8 different sales exceeding the recent 12-month average, $1,300 worth of money's moved, and no Moon Knight updates. I mean, we are in the spooky season, but what's actually going on is that we base this list off the recent 12-month average. And the 12-month average has officially adjusted for this book, pushing this book way up on our list because it's so damn affordable now that what people are paying is slightly above the new low 12-month average. You got to be watching this book because it has fallen from grace. This is a very unique situation.
The 9.4 up 26%. The 9.6 up 47%. The 9.8 sold for $336. That's up 21%. And the newsstand 9.8 up 9% for a $440 sale.
I have to hit you with some crazy numbers here. This book we haven't chatted about in 4 months. In that time frame, we have seen 30 new 9.4s. The record high was $330 back in 2022. Now, averaging, 12-month average, $70. The 9.6 has 26 new copies added to the census in the last 4 months. The $450 height was reached in 2022. Now, $100 average sales. And the 9.8 heights were $1,350 back in 2021. The average is now $276. And there are 20 new 9.8s that have been added. Crazy census increase, crazy low average prices has just made a hot book this week because people love the book, but they are paying rock bottom prices officially.
Last book was a what the hell are you doing here moment. This is where have you been moment, because #3, finally, like long overdue, Amazing Spider-Man 252. First appearance of Spider-Man's black costume. Iconic AF-15 cover swipe.
We have 7 different sales, over $2,000 exceeding the recent 12-month average. Symbiote love is high. We've talked about this in length. The newsstand 9.4 sold for $462, up 80%. That's a year high. The 9.6 sold for $380, up 5%. And the Newsy 9.6 sold for $425. That's up 7%. The 9.8 12-month average for a direct copy is just above $1,000 on this key book. How does that feel?
I am a fan of this book. I do like it, but not at this price. Like many Copper and Bronze Age books, you need to be careful because there is a lot of them in high grade. We have 1,800 9.8s, 36 new 9.8s in the last 4 months for this book. That's kind of nuts. So please be careful when buying this. I still think it's too high. You need to be patient. You need to wait and get the book at the price that you feel most comfortable getting it at.
Well, let's compare it with the Origin issue. At the list at #2 with Marvel Superhero Secret Wars issue #8, the Origin of the Black Suit, which came out way later than ASM 252. 9 different sales exceeded the recent 12-month average, totaling over $2,300. The 9.4 sold for $295 at its highest amount because 3 different copies outperformed the recent 12-month average at a 40% increase. The 9.6 sold for $300, very similar to that 9.4 high. up 16%, and the 9.8 sold for $550, up 10%. That right there is about half as much as ASM 252 is selling for on average at a 9.8. And considering that ASM 252, we just told you, has 1,800 copies at a 9.8, comparing that to Secret Wars 8, where it was printed way more in mass because it was an event, that has 6,000 copies. Do you think if ASM 252 is overpriced, that Secret Wars 8 is also overpriced right now?
4,600 more copies on the census and selling for half. Yeah, I think this book still has room to go down, and I think it's more like around a $400 book, to be honest.
Do you agree with the guru? Is Secret Wars 8 too cheap? Is ASM 252 too expensive? Let us know in the comment section below while we report on the #1 book in the world. But before we do that, we've got to remind you that Q3 numbers are in, and we have more comics to talk about after #1. So stay tuned. The #1 hottest book in the world is Venom #3, the first appearance of Null.
8 sales, $2,100. Let's hit the highlights. Third printing, 9.8, $369. That's up 9%. Fourth printing, 9.8, $190, up 74%. The Melina 1 in 25 variant, 9.8, $346. That's up 7%. The SDCC Stegman variant, 9.8, sold for $160. That's up 11%. The store exclusive, the Scon version that people talk about, that 9.8 sold for $285. That's up 69%. And the 9.8 sold for $270. That's up 27%.
Which brings us to the Q3 rankings. What we did is we took all the books that we covered over the last 90 days, ranked them by how often they showed up on the Hot 10, and then measured them against the placement on the list in which they achieved.
The best of the Hot 10 in the third quarter. Number 10, Star Wars #1, 3 appearances, fourth, and third.
Number 9 is Giant Size X-Men #1, placing it on the Hot 10 3 different times with a 4th, a 2nd, and a 1st place outdoing Star Wars 1.
Number 8, Venom #3, a new one on this third quarter list. So I expect it to move up in the next quarter, but it had 3 appearances already, a 2nd and 2 firsts.
Number 7 is X-Men 266. I mean, we had Deadpool Wolverine happen this last quarter, so it makes sense that it was on the list 5 different times, and the highest it ranked was number 2, first appearance of Gambit.
Prevailing over that, something vintage at number 6, Silver Surfer #1 with 5 appearances and #1 spot being its highest placement.
Number 5 is Wolverine #1, more Deadpool Wolverine love, 6 different appearances on the Hot 10, ranking at 3, 2, and of course, number 1.
Oh, number 4, 340. Love this book. So did you. 6 appearances all over the board. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th. You name it, it's there.
Number 3, Hulk 1, ranking 8 different times this last quarter because of the trailer. And I alluded to it earlier that I'm a little worried about this movie because we're hearing rumors that the Red Hulk is barely in the film. Ugh.
Number 2, First Deadpool, New Mutants #98. This had 9 appearances, 3/3, 2 seconds, and a 1st place finish.
And the #1 hottest book of the quarter is Secret Wars 8. 8 different appearances on the Hot 10. This all happened recently because of Null. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different first place slots. Do you own any of these books? I gotta know what you're specking on. And as always,
Read and geek responsibly.
enough said.